Hi, I'm David Penn, Research Analyst with Finovate. We're here at Finovate 2023 in Times Square, New York. Joining me is Emily Steele. She is President and COO of Savana. Emily, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I thought before we got started, maybe you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and the work you do at Savana.
Yeah, so I've actually been at Savana for about a year, but have been in the fintech industry my entire career. I started out working on the core banking side, spent about 10 years there, and then ultimately moved to ancillary products that are kind of in an ecosystem. If you think of things that sit on top of or around a core, spent another 10 years. I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur fintech person, and then ultimately went back to core for working for an international company, Temenos, and then finally a year ago landed at Savana, thinking about doing things a little bit differently than throughout my career.
Sure, interesting, very interesting background. So the number of things that we wanted to talk with you today, one of the things we wanted to discuss was the idea of the improvements to digital customer service and self-service in US banks. In particular, we know that there have been a lot of companies or businesses that have spent a lot of money on that sort of thing. There's still a lot of things that are sort of yet to be addressed. And I wonder if you could talk about some of the things you think are really sort of top of list on that regard.
Sure. I think you're right. I think that we've spent a significant amount of time improving the customer experiences. And if we think about the demand over the last couple of decades, we've added new digital solutions on the front, we've enhanced cores on the back. But one of the things that I think has occurred as we've done that is we've added lots of product silos on the back and a lot of different silos on the front. And inadvertently, that's creating consumer experiences that aren't as consistent. When you or I as a consumer are coming into the bank, we may have a different experience doing the same activity depending on the channel that we're coming in. So we believe that there's an opportunity to really drive a convergence or a unification of all of those disparate systems that aren't talking to one another. And then if we can operationalize that a bit, we believe that it can drive a better consumer experience.
That makes a lot of sense. We hear so much about all the different products and things that are being offered, and we never think about them from the consumer side in the sense that they're seeing all of these things come across. How do they actually integrate them into their actual banking experience? I'm wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the unique ways that Savana is approaching this problem.
Yeah, you're right. One of the things that we're doing is we're looking to not go from the back of a bank or the front of a bank. We're looking to come inside the bank and actually drive change from a consumer perspective, right? You and I as consumers, we have one relationship where we've chosen our bank, but we may have many relationships inside that bank. So what Savana's done is we've created a core agnostic, channel agnostic platform that sits across the core and connects to the front, but we pull out all those processes in the disparate systems on the back and the front ends, and we operationalize those, and then we push them forward to a consumer through an API library. So you've got consistency regardless of whether you're coming in from a self-service channel or whether you're coming in from a bank-assisted channel. Your and my experience is exactly the same regardless of where we're actually interacting with our bank. And we believe that it's at that point, if we can enable the bank to own those processes and centralize them, that again, your and my experiences will be better as consumers or businesses of the bank.
That's a really interesting point. I can imagine an instance where a customer is used to dealing with their bank in a certain way and a suggestion's made, why don't you try this? And they go, and whoa, I don't know about that. Maybe I'll go back to what I was doing. And it really kind of helps, I think, people get to understand the ability to take more advantage of some of the services that are available if it's something that they're going to be able to use comfortably and consistently, again, as you were mentioning.
Yeah, completely agree with you.
Yeah. Now, Savana's going to be demoing on stage at Finovate today. It's going to be very interesting to see. Talking about embedded banking and banking service solutions for FIs. I'm wondering if maybe you could give us a little bit of a preview of that and why you think this is a particularly timely thing to be showing.
Yeah, so BaaS and embedded banking, we've been talking about, and you do lots of interviews, we've been talking about that for quite some time now. But banks are in a very interesting position where they can drive revenue, drive profitability, and really bring new products, not just the traditional deposit accounts or mortgage accounts, but bring innovative products from fintechs to their consumers. The challenge with it, we've been talking about it, but to realize that is pretty tough for a fintech because charters, as you know, really difficult to get. Bank already has the charter. If we marry that and the bank begins to offer that charter to the fintech and then distribute those services or products to market, now you bring that marriage together. The challenge that we've had, and the reason we've been talking about it and not actually seeing it happen too much in the market, is because the technology hasn't been able to support it just yet. You end up with additional silos, disconnected processes, you end up with identity verification challenges, multi-brand challenges. So what we're going to show today at Finovate is we have focused on being able to enable the bank to offer those services, connect seamlessly, and really run the bank, deliver these processes through the bank's processes. So the bank, it's really just an extension of what they do today. So we can support the multi-brand. We'll actually show building a bank today from a fintech perspective in the 7 minutes that we get. We'll also show how then those products are actually following the bank's exact processes, not inserting any risks, allowing them to just navigate and inherit their own orchestration, their own process, while doing so in a multi-brand function.
Wow, interesting. Very much looking forward to seeing all of that.
Yes.
We talked a little bit earlier about core systems, the issue of legacy banks, or legacy core systems and so forth, and how those are still a hurdle in terms of modernization. I know in the news flow, we constantly see that is still a challenge that's out there. Do you believe that at the end of the day, though, that cores are the problem?
So for me, that's a yes and a no.
Okay.
The core was intended to be the transaction processing, the interest accrual, posting, even product manufacturing, and I think that cores do that very well today. I don't think core conversion is the answer to everything. So if your core is actually doing those things well, I don't think that it necessarily means that the way to modernization is through a core transformation. Okay. The second no that I would have is cores have to be open. They need an API first strategy so that banks can integrate to an ecosystem that they need to actually drive their business. So if the core isn't open, then I believe you need to actually consider replacing the core, or if it doesn't meet those needs, consider replacing the core. But I don't believe that replacing your core is the answer to everything.
Right.
You're right, in the press we hear that legacy term all the time, and anything over 10 years old we need to throw out. And I don't agree with that, because they do things very well. What we've done as an industry is we've expected the core to do everything. Cores aren't intended to be communication centralization. They're not intended to be a CRM. They're not intended to be the consumer experience, but we're expecting them to, so they take a lot of heat in the market when things aren't going wrong. So my no of we shouldn't be talking about replacing cores is when that's the real problem. We need to look at what the real problem is and address that with the right technology solution. And if you're looking for how do I improve the customer experience, I believe that you need to look at operationalizing a bank and pushing consistent experiences to a consumer rather than replacing your core. And I believe that's what will create great customer experiences.
Wow, very, very interesting. And I'm sure there are plenty of bankers and people who are listening who appreciate that nuance as opposed to completely rip it out or go the other way. I'm thinking maybe by way of wrapping up, if we're sitting here, if we're lucky enough to be sitting here next year talking about fintech trends, financial services trends, what are some of the things that you think we might be talking about that maybe folks around here aren't even thinking about?
Well, certainly AI. Generative AI is definitely getting traction in the banking space. Needing an opportunity to do better servicing, more, for instance, promoting and serving up for you and I products and services that we need from a real intelligent point of view. So I think we're going to see more and more of AI, and technology is already beginning to advance to support that. I would be remiss if I didn't say I hope we're thinking of modernization differently.
Yes.
Because today modernization is almost only associated with either a core transformation or replacement of digital. And I hope that what we've talked about over the last 12 months is modernization is also about coming inside of a bank and transforming a bank differently to truly create a first-class customer service. And certainly I believe we won't just be talking about BaaS and embedded banking, but banks will be offering new products that aren't just those traditional, because technology is actually supporting it. So it's all about the customer experience, in my opinion.
Fantastic, very interesting. I really appreciate hearing your insights. Going to be looking very much forward to your demo coming up a little bit later today.
Thank you, much appreciate.
Thank
you for
you.
your time.